The last week, the tomatoes needed water twice a day, and my dad's pain pills had to be ground into applesauce so they'd go down. The fence out back leaned where the winter winds had pushed it. A board bowed like a rib we never got around to fixing. The house sounded like his slow breathing, and the click of the thermostat I kept steady at 72 because the cold bothered his bones. My name is Kimberly Marshall. I'm 33. I moved back into my dad's small, single-story place in coastal California 2 years ago when the stairs at his old condo got to be too much and the cough turned into appointments. I work mornings at the local garden and hardware store. The shifts meant I could be home by lunch to set out the pillbox, make soup, and keep the washer going. Dad was 69. He liked crosswords and the Dodgers and exactly 2 kinds of jam. By last fall, the walker tracks had worn soft lines into the hallway rug. He would fall asleep in his chair with the TV on low, the subtitles crooked. Aiden is my older stepbrother. He's 37, tall enough to make doorways look small, forever sure of himself even when he shouldn't be. He and I didn't grow up together. Dad married his mom, Whitney, when I was in high school. Whitney is 60 and talks in gentle loops so she doesn't have to land anywhere. She'd drop off lasagna and say, "You're doing so much," then change the subject to weather. On Tuesday of that last week, Aiden stopped by with 2 lattes and a bag of muffins. He stood in the doorway, didn't take off his sunglasses, and said, "You're a saint, Kim." He looked around like a contractor walking a site. "What are resale values in this neighborhood now?" he asked, as if we were comparing pickup trucks. I said I didn't know. He tapped the thermostat with 1 knuckle and told me about a friend of a friend who'd gotten over asking last month in a different zip code. He left before Dad woke up. I kept receipts in a shoebox on top of the dryer because it made me feel like I was tying things down. I wrote the totals on an index card in black Sharpie, $642 in copays for the last 2 hospital visits, $318 in utilities for the month with the heat on, $95 for the yard guy when the mower gave up. The envelope from the pharmacy was rubber banded with the dentist bill. When I ran the dryer, the shoebox hummed against the metal lid like it was agreeing with me. Otto next door is 71, retired from the post office, all shoulders and a quiet nod. He raked his front strip of lawn, the same time I watered most days. He waved at me when the hospice nurse left and asked if I needed anything. "I'm all right, thanks," I said, and meant it in the way you mean the car will make it to the gas station on fumes. He saw the yard guy miss a week in June and saw me slip him an extra 20 when he finally came. Amara is my best friend from high school. She's 33 too, works remote for a property management company, and lives 10 minutes away in a second-floor apartment that smells like cinnamon and laundry soap. She kept telling me, "My couch is your couch," and I kept saying, "We're okay for now." She brought me a stack of manila folders and a sheet of labels and said, "Let me be useful." I wrote medical, utilities, house, and stuck the tabs on like that could organize a life. We buried Dad on a Thursday in late August, the kind of afternoon where the air goes flat and even the birds go quiet. The service was simple. Whitney ordered the flowers and chose a verse. Aiden wore a navy suit and sunglasses and kept his phone face down in his hand like it might bite. People hugged me and said the right things. Afterward, our fridge held 3 casseroles, a bowl of cut fruit, and a pie sweating under plastic wrap. Someone left a casserole spoon in our mailbox by mistake. I put it in the sink and filled it with hot water, then forgot it there. The house on that last night smelled like lemon cleaner and chicken broth. I set the thermostat and took off Dad's blanket from the back of the recliner and folded it into a neat rectangle because he would have liked it that way. I watered the tomatoes again, a slow trickle until the soil went dark and glossy. The sun dropped behind the neighbor's roofline. Otto's porch light clicked on. In my back pocket, my key sat warm from my skin. It was the same brass key I'd had since we moved Dad here, worn smooth on the edges, the teeth still sharp. I flipped it in my palm out of habit as I walked from room to room, checking plugs and locks, opening the window in the hallway just a crack to let the night air cool the place down. The hum of the old box fan filled the living room like a lullaby made of cardboard and dust. I lay down on the couch with a throw pillow and didn't bother with a blanket. The shoebox with the receipts sat on the dryer, and the labeled folders waited on the kitchen table for when I had the stomach to sort them. I could feel the emptiness of the place like a draft under a door. I fell asleep to the fan's steady whir and the tick of the thermostat. The key in my pocket felt heavy, like a promise I didn't know how to say out loud yet, only that it mattered. 1 week after the funeral, the marine layer didn't burn off. It was noon and the sky still sat grey over the street, a mist fine enough to make my hair damp. I turned onto our block and saw my boxes on the lawn, rain soft and tilting, a stack of my life sagging into the grass. Aiden stood on the porch with a new key ring, silver and loud in his hand. Destiny leaned against the post in biker shorts and a sweatshirt, iced coffee sweating onto the railing. Whitney was in the driveway, arms folded around her purse. She waved without meeting my eyes. "Kim," Aiden called, like we were just bumping into each other at a store. "You're a guest, Kim. Dad wouldn't want you stuck here." I put my car in park and sat for a second with my hands on the wheel. The tomatoes, 2 plants over by the fence, were still there, heavy and red behind the bent board. My key felt like a coin in my pocket. I stepped out. "What is this?" "Transition," Aiden said. He lifted the keys and let them jingle. "It's time. I'm the oldest. I'm managing the property." Destiny smiled at her phone and didn't look up. Whitney said, soft, "We all want what's best," and stared at the curb. "I live here," I said. My mouth wanted to shake. I kept it still. "Give me a day to sort my things." "A day?" Aiden laughed like I'd told a joke. "An hour. I've got a guy coming about the gutters." I tried my key in the front door. It slid in and hit a hard stop. The new deadbolt sat bright above the knob. Aiden watched. I took my key back out and put it in my pocket. "Please," I said. "Just that." "An hour," he repeated. "We'll put any personal items on the porch when it's convenient." Destiny finally looked up. "It'll be good for you," she said, like a pep talk. "Fresh start." Whitney hovered, then said, "We can bring you anything you need," in the same tone she'd used about flowers and weather. I walked to the lawn and crouched by a box labeled "Kitchen" in my handwriting. The tape had peeled up. The cardboard tore when I lifted it. Inside were 2 mugs, a dish towel, a jar of cumin with a cracked lid. I set the towel over the mugs and carried them to my trunk. I moved like I was working a shift. Lift, set, go back. A framed photo of Dad and me at the county fair slid face down in another box, glass wet and gritty with grass. I slid it into the back seat, glass up. A pair of work jeans, damp at the cuffs. The shoebox from the dryer sat crooked on top of a pile, lid warping in the damp. I grabbed it with both hands. The rubber band snapped. Receipts fanned out like pale leaves. I gathered them, pressing them flat against my thigh, the ink blurring in spots. I put the shoebox on the passenger seat and tucked the receipts inside with my palm. Otto's screen door clicked across the street. He stood there a second, then went back in. I didn't wave. "What about my clothes in the dresser?" I asked when I passed the porch again. "We'll put any personal items on the porch when it's convenient," Aiden said. Same words, like a script. "I need the notebook from the desk." "Email me a list," he said. "We'll see." The hour stretched and snapped at the same time. I filled the trunk, then the back seat, a garbage bag of sweaters, a grocery bag of toiletries. The box fan was inside. I couldn't get to it. The couches, the bed, the drawers, they were behind a lock that wasn't mine. When I closed the trunk, my hands smelled like wet cardboard and grass. Destiny said, "To nobody and to me, You'll be fine. Like, fine was a place you could drive to if you had the right directions. I looked at Aiden. I'll be in touch, I said. No more, because anything more would turn into something loud I couldn't take back. He nodded like a landlord who'd just done someone a favor. Good, he said. We'll keep an eye on things here. I drove to Amara's on side streets because the main road felt too exposed. The shoebox slid once on the seat and I caught it at a light. When I parked, she was already at the door in socks, hair up, a dish towel over her shoulder. Come in, she said, no questions. Shoes off if you want, couch is clean. Her apartment smelled like cinnamon and laundry soap. The light switch worked with a little click that felt like a small mercy. I put the shoebox on her coffee table and peeled the damp lid back. We spread the receipts out on a baking sheet like cookies, blotted them with paper towels, used her hairdryer on cool. $642 in copays, $318 in utilities, $95 for the yard guy. The numbers steadied when they dried. Amara set a glass of water by my elbow. We'll figure it out tomorrow, she said. Sleep here tonight. I nodded. I put my useless key on top of the shoebox. It looked smaller in this light. I stared at the totals until they stopped blurring, then lay down on her couch. The cushions held. I pulled the throw over my chest and listened to the apartment hum like a normal place. I told myself I'd sleep and then find out what, if anything, still belonged to me. Friday morning, I asked my manager for the morning off. Family paperwork, I said. He looked at the schedule, tapped a pen, and nodded. Be back by 2 if you can. I promised I would. The county clerk's building smelled like toner and floor wax. A line of people wrapped past the marriage license posters and a bulletin board full of legal words I didn't know. When it was my turn, a woman with a neat bun and a name badge that said Esme Holmes pulled the microphone closer. What can we help you with? I'm looking for a recorded deed for my dad's house, I said, giving her his full name and the address. He passed last week. I'm sorry, she said. Same tone she probably used a dozen times a day, soft but steady. She typed, nails short and clean, the clack of the keyboard louder than it needed to be in that room. Do you have a parcel number? I shook my head. She clicked anyway. We can search by name and address. She scrolled, stopped. There's a transfer on death deed recorded October last year, she said. It names you as beneficiary. My throat went tight. It does? She turned the screen a little, enough that I could see the scan. Dad's handwriting on a line I'd recognize anywhere. The blocky capitals he used after his hands started to shake. My name spelled right. The address. A notary stamp from some afternoon I wasn't there for. Can I get a copy? I asked. Certified? She said. We can do that. Yes. My voice came out thin. I pressed my palms to the counter to keep them from floating away. She printed, the machine coughing out gray pages, then added a page on top. There's a 120-day window after date of death, she said. Creditors can file claims during that time. After 120 days, you can bring in a certified death certificate and record an affidavit of death of transfer with this deed. We have a checklist. She slid me the sheet with boxes and lines. Copy of death certificate, form number, fees. We can't give legal advice, she added, but this is the process. How much for the copies? I asked. $12 for the certified set, she said. I paid in cash. The receipt was thermal paper that would fade if I didn't protect it. I tucked it under the paperclip on the front of the manila folder she handed me with the copies. The folder felt like a life raft. In the parking lot, I sat in my car with the door cracked for air and called Amara. It's there, I said when she picked up. He signed a deed last fall. It says it transfers to me when he died. There's a 120-day wait. Okay, she said. I could hear her keyboard stop. Okay, come here. We'll make a plan. Do you want coffee or food on the way? I don't know, I said, and laughed because my face was wet and everything felt out of order. I have paper, I have to wait. Then we'll wait, right, she said. I'll get out the binder I use for taxes. On the drive back, I passed the house. I didn't pull into the driveway. I parked across the street by Otto's and got out with my phone. The mailbox still had our number stenciled in white, a little chipped. I took a photo of the numbers, then one of the tomato cages pushed up against the leaning board. The water meter sat in a concrete box near the curb. The lid had a serial number stamped into it. I took a picture of that too. The gas meter was against the side wall, visible from the sidewalk. I snapped that one and the electric meter with its blinking red dot. Otto leaned on his rake and watched me over the top of the handle. You all right? He asked. I will be, I said. I lifted the folder, then didn't say more. The paper was one thing, the lock was another. He nodded toward the house. Saw you here every day, he said. 2 years. Saw you pay that lawn kid when Aiden forgot. He said forgot like a word he didn't buy. If you need me to write something down, dates and what I saw, I can do that. Would you? I asked. My voice was steady now. Nothing big, just simple. Simple is what I do, he said. I'll put it in my mailbox for you tomorrow. Thank you, I said. I meant it. I didn't text Aiden. I didn't call Whitney. I took one more photo, front walkway, cracked tile, the hose line trailing, and left. At Amara's, she'd cleared the kitchen table. She set a 3-ring binder in the middle, black, with a packet of plastic sleeves and a Sharpie on top. Tabs, she said, wiggling a sheet of labels. You name them. I slid Esme's folder into the first sleeve and labeled the tab deed in block letters. Next tab, death certificate, to get. Then, bills, utilities, house. I dug the shoebox out of my bag and moved the receipts into sleeves by type, the ink safe now behind plastic. The $640 in copays got their own page with the dates written in the corner. The $318 utility bill went behind it with the account numbers circled. The 95 yard guy receipt, card copy crinkled, went under house. I clipped the county receipt to the front pocket and wrote 12/0 with the date. Amara made grilled cheese and cut it into triangles. We ate at the table while I wrote a checklist on a legal pad, ordered death certificates, calendar 120 days, save for fees, talk to utilities, keep everything calm. I wrote, wait, and drew a box next to it like I could check off time. You going to sleep here again? She asked. Yeah, I said. I can work my shift tomorrow. After that, I'll come back and file. The word sounded like hardware. She smiled. You're very good at filing. The weight stretched in front of me, not a wall, but a long bridge. I put the binder on the top shelf of her bookcase, within reach, and set my phone alarm to remind me to water the tomatoes at Otto's spigot on my way past. I could do that much. I could hold paper, mark dates, and take one step, then the next. I didn't need to shout. The forms would do it for me. The first email came 2 days after I got the copies from the clerk. It wasn't even from Aiden. The sender line said Whitney, subject regarding the house, like we were meeting about bake sale logistics. Aiden has asked me to reach out, she wrote. He is managing the property at this time. If you need any personal items, we can place them on the porch when convenient. Please provide a list. I stared at personal items long enough for the words to feel fake. I typed a reply and kept it to 2 sentences like I was threading a needle. I need you to split Dad's last bills and utilities with me. Totals are attached. Please leave my notebook from the desk and my clothes from the dresser box by the porch. I can pick them up Saturday. I attached a PDF with scans of the $642 in copays, the $318 utilities, the 95 yard work, account numbers circled, dates in the corner. I wrote nothing about the deed. I hit send and put my phone face down on Amara's table. An hour later, another email from Whitney. This one had text in the body that sounded more like Aiden. You are not on the deed. I talked to a guy and he confirmed, "You've been staying there as a guest and now you're out. As for the bills, you actually owe me for storage of your items. We'll put what we can on the porch when it's convenient." I laughed once, a short wrong sound that scratched my throat. Amara looked up from her laptop. "Good news or bad?" "Same news," I said. "He talked to a guy." Amara's mouth tilted. "Cool. I love when a guy is the authority." I closed my email. Esme's copies stayed in the binder, first tab. I ran my hand over the plastic sleeve and didn't take them out. There was the weight. Paper had rules. If I shoved it at him now, he'd just shove back. I wrote email only on the top of my legal pad and underlined it. I moved into Amara's in a real way that week. I put my toothbrush in a cup next to hers and took the bottom shelf in the fridge. I slid a tote of clothes under her coffee table and taped a label on one end so I'd put it back the same way every time. I gave her some cash for groceries even though she waved me off. "Take it," I said. "We're not 12. She grinned and took it. At work, I stacked bags of potting soil and mixed paint and cut keys with the old machine that whines but still does the job. A woman bought a flat of marigolds and asked if they needed full sun. "Yes," I said. "Water twice a week to start." My manager asked how much time I needed for family stuff. "I'll keep mornings," I said. The store had the same hum it always did, and for 4 hours at a time, I could be just a person who knew what size hose fitting matched which connector. Every night I put a few dollars in an envelope marked fees and tucked it behind the binder on Amara's shelf. I didn't know what each form would cost. I knew it would cost something. I set a calendar reminder for day 30, day 60, day 90, day 120. I added Otto's name to a note in my phone under witnesses and then changed it to neighbors because that felt less like a courtroom. Saturday morning, I drove to the house at 9 because I'd said Saturday in the email. The sky was clear and mean about it, no clouds, sun hitting the driveway straight on. A rented dumpster sat crooked near the garage. Someone had spray painted their security company's sign brighter and stuck it in the lawn like a flag. On top of the pile in the dumpster, Dad's magazines were bundled with twine in stacks of 5. The top one, a baseball preview with a crease down the cover from where he'd folded it over an armrest. I parked across the street. The porch had a cardboard box, 2 sweaters that weren't mine, a bag of mismatched cords, a ceramic spoon rest shaped like a chicken I didn't recognize. No notebook. No dresser drawers. The front door was shut. The new deadbolt looked like a tooth. I stood by the curb and looked at the magazines a long minute. Then I walked up the driveway, reached into the top of the dumpster, and took the baseball one. Aiden wasn't around. Destiny's voice drifted from inside, laughing at something, a TV going too loud behind her. Whitney's car wasn't in the drive. I held the magazine like it might fall apart if I pressed too hard and walked back to my car. Otto was on his porch with a mug. He lifted it in a half wave. I lifted the magazine back like a secret handshake. He didn't say anything, and neither did I. I put the magazine in the passenger seat next to the shoebox and sat there until the sun heated the steering wheel. Then I said, out loud into the empty car, "I'm going to do this right." It wasn't a speech. It was a line to balance on when the ground tilted. I drove back to Amara's and slid the magazine under the binder on the shelf. I made a new label for a tab and wrote emails. I printed the chain with Whitney and hole punched it. The binder made a soft click when the ring shut. When my phone buzzed again later with a new email, subject, follow up, I didn't open it right away. I sliced an apple, washed a plate, and then sat down with the legal pad and wrote the next small thing. Order death certificates Monday. Underneath that, in smaller letters, I wrote, don't send deed yet. Wait. Then I checked off Saturday pickup, even though the box had been wrong, because showing up counted. The days stretched and settled into a routine that didn't look like much from the outside. I woke before 6, made coffee in Amara's kitchen, and was at the store by 7 to open the registers and wheel the racks of herbs outside. I liked the quiet of that hour, the way the automatic doors sighed and the bagged soil stacked in straight lines. For 4 hours, I answered questions about fertilizer and cut keys on the old machine that screams on the first pass and then calms down. After work, I went back to Amara's, showered, and ate tuna and crackers over the sink because a plate felt like a task. Then I opened the binder on the kitchen table and added one more piece. I called Vital Records on Monday like I'd written on the pad. They told me how to order certified death certificates, so I filled out the form online, paid the fee, and selected pickup. 3 days later, I took an early lunch, waited under fluorescent lights with 2 other people and a crying baby, and signed for 2 copies. I hole-punched the receipt and slid it behind the death certificate to get tab, which I relabeled to death certificate with a little satisfaction I didn't show on my face. I pulled bank statements from my email and printed the pages that mattered. Charges to the electric company, the gas, the city water, auto pay entries that lined up with the months I'd written on my index card. I circled the account numbers. On the November statement from last year, I highlighted a check to the county tax collector and wrote property tax in the margin. Each page went in a sleeve behind utilities and house, the binder rings clicking shut like a soft yes. Otto slid an envelope into his mailbox with my name on it, just like he said. Inside was a 1-page note, typed and signed in his neat hand. I have resided next door since 1985. I observed Kimberly living at our address daily from September 2 years ago through the present. I observed her paying a lawn service and handling daily care for her father. Dates, nothing extra, exactly what I'd asked for. I texted him thank you with a photo of the binder tab it was going under. He replied with a thumbs up. I started a tab labeled occupancy after Destiny posted a photo from my dad's front porch, her legs up on a metal table that used to sit by his recliner. The caption said, "Fresh starts," with a sunrise emoji. I took a screenshot before she could bury it under jokes and food pics, printed it, and slipped it into a sleeve. On the margin, I wrote, date, timestamp, and circled it. The yarn of the days kept pulling tight. Aiden sent another email about managing the property and storage fees. I didn't answer right away. When I did, it was 2 sentences. Please confirm the time on Saturday to pick up my notebook and clothing. As previously requested, please remit your portion of the final bills. Totals attached. I attached the same PDF and added a new page with the death certificate fee because money is money whether or not he paid it. On a Wednesday night near the end of September, I scrolled back through my voicemails to find a call from a customer and hit play on one from Dad by accident. His voice filled the quiet. Paperwork handled, Kim. Sleep. October last year, the date stamp said. I held the phone to my chest a second and then hit play again. Third time, I wrote the date and a tiny line from his words on a sticky note and stuck it inside the binder in the deed tab, not the voicemail itself, just a reminder of what the paper meant. I kept watering the tomatoes when I could. Otto let me use his spigot and coil a hose through the fence gap. The soil went dark, the leaves stayed glossy. The bent board leaned the same way it always had. I snipped 2 ripe ones and set them on Amara's counter on a napkin. We ate them over the sink with salt, the juice running down our wrists. In the back of the house tab, I slipped the yard guy's carbon copy receipt for the $95 from last summer, the one that still smelled faintly like gasoline. On the back, I'd scribbled a phone number in blue ink and the word Jose Locksmith from the afternoon the shed padlock seized up and the mower was trapped inside. I hadn't called him then because the yard kid had wiggled the lock open with patience I didn't have. I stared at the number now and underlined it once. Destiny drove by me once when I was parked across from the house, snapping another photo of the meters. She laughed to herself, window open, a song too loud for the street. I didn't look up. I checked the date stamp on my phone and moved on. The Effie's envelope on Amara's shelf got fatter. I put in singles, fives, a 20 when I could. The calendar alerts popped up on my phone. Day 30, day 45. I acknowledged them and didn't make them into anything they weren't. I wrote email only at the top of every new page of notes so I wouldn't forget and call in a moment of wanting to make noise. I didn't send the deed. I waited. On a slow Sunday at the store, I laminated my schedule and set it under a magnet by the time clock. "You good?" my manager asked, low enough not to be a thing. "I'm fine," I said, because fine was a place I could walk to from here. "I'm just collecting paperwork." By the time the first cool wind came through and the Dodgers lost another late game, the binder was heavy in my hands. I felt the weight of it when I slid it onto Amara's shelf at night. Not victory, not even safety. Just something solid to hold on to while the days crossed themselves off. I kept the keys I had, the wrong ones, for the shape of them, and I kept my phone charged with the next small thing ready on a list. Print bank statements, scan Otto's letter, screenshot, save, wait. Day 121 landed on a Saturday. My phone chimed at 6 with an alert that just said, "Wait over." I made coffee in the dark at Amara's, pulled the binder from the shelf and flipped to the deed tab. Certified copy, death certificate. Behind that, the affidavit I'd filled out and had notarized on Friday afternoon, ready to record first thing Monday when the county opened. The county website said the deed transferred at death. The 120 days were for claims. I had the paper. I had the date. I wasn't going to shout. I was going to show up. I called the number I'd scribbled on the back of the yard receipt last summer. Jose answered on the second ring, voice even. "Delgado, locksmith." "It's Kimberly," I said. "We talked Thursday." 8 a.m., still okay?" "I'm 5 minutes out," he said. "Grey van." I left Amara a note and was parked across from the house at 7:55. The air was cool enough to see my breath once. The hummingbird feeder my dad had hung years ago was cloudy and empty, but 2 birds still sparred around it like they remembered better days. Jose pulled in, exactly on time, and lifted a toolbox from the back. He was short, careful in the way he set things down. "Morning," he said, and I handed him a manila folder like a peace offering. "I'm the named beneficiary on a transfer on death deed," I said, keeping it factual. "The 120 days ended today. I've got the death certificate and the notarized affidavit. Recording Monday." He nodded without looking bored. "Front and back?" "Front, side, and the garage service door," I said. He got to work without asking for the story. I liked him for that. The drill whined, screws came out quiet into his palm, and by 8:25 he had the front deadbolt off and a new one in. He handed me the old hardware in a plastic bag. "Keep it or toss it," he said. "Up to you." Inside, the living room smelled like dust and someone else's perfume trying to cover it. A pair of sneakers I didn't recognize sat by the couch. On the coffee table, a candle shaped like a cactus, still boxed. Destiny's laughter came from a video paused on the TV, phone to TV casting, paused mid-frame. I unplugged the console and coiled the cord, set it in a box. I wasn't here to throw anything away. I worked quickly. I'd brought flattened boxes in my trunk and tape. I labeled in black marker, Aiden, clothes, Whitney, kitchen, Misk, living room. I folded sweaters that weren't mine and stacked a pile of his t-shirts, rolled a cord bundle, wrapped mugs I didn't buy in a dish towel. I left Dad's things where they were. His book stayed on the shelf. His blanket stayed folded on the recliner like I'd left it. The spare bedroom that used to be Mom's sewing room had a duffel bag half open on the bed with a dress in it. I zipped it and laid it in a box padded with bath towels I didn't recognize. Jose met me in the hall. "Side door done," he said. "Garage service door will take 10 more." His tone stayed neutral. professional. Do you want new keys keyed alike? Yes, I said. 4 copies. He went back out and I opened the garage. The smell hit me. Oil and old cardboard. The box fan leaned against the water heater where Aiden had left it, dusty and dented. I set the 3 labeled boxes by the washer and wiped the top with a rag until the lemon cleaner cut through the stale. One more box, Destiny, bathroom, because the makeup bag on the counter had a name tag in a cursive font. At 9:05, Jose handed me a small ring with 4 new keys. Front, side, garage, he said. All matched. Do you want the back gate lock rekeyed too? Not today, I said. This is enough. He told me the total. I counted out cash from the FE's envelope and got a receipt with his card stapled to it. I slid the receipt into the binder sleeve in my bag, a reflex at this point. Before I carried the boxes out, I took one more pass with a cloth over the kitchen counters. Crumbs into the sink, a line of dust gone. I didn't want anyone to accuse me of tossing or breaking. I set the boxes on the porch in the shade, lids taped but not sealed, names big enough to read from the steps. Inside the screen door, I taped an envelope at eye level. I'd typed the note and printed it at Amara's last night so my hands wouldn't shake the letters into something ugly. Aiden. Enclosed. Copies of the transfer on death deed and the death certificate. I will be recording the affidavit of death with the county on Monday. 3 boxes with your and Whitney's items are on the porch. Please pick up by Friday. Regarding final household expenses, your share due to me is $480. Please remit by the 15th. Copies of receipts attached. Contact me by email only. Kimberly. Behind the note, I stacked the copies. Deed, death certificate, a 1-page summary with the math, and photocopies of the receipts. I initialed the bottom corner of each page and wrote the date. I closed the screen door and latched it. The sun had moved just enough to hit the tomatoes through the bent fence board, the fruit split on 2 that I should have picked yesterday. I turned the thermostat down a notch and heard the click I knew by heart. In the quiet, I heard tires crunch the gravel of the driveway. A car door slammed, then another. Voices carried down the walk, Destiny high and bright, Aiden tight like he was winding himself up. Whitney's lower murmur behind them. The same voices I'd been hearing in my head for months, now close enough to move the air. I stood 3 feet back from the screen, keyring in my hand, and felt the weight of them land in my palm like they belonged there. I took one breath, the lemon cleaner sharp in my nose, and waited for the knocking. Aiden hit the screen with the side of his fist, not hard enough to break it, just enough to make the aluminum frame rattle. Open the door, he said. Be reasonable. Destiny angled her phone so it caught me and Aiden in the same frame. Say hi, she chirped. Whitney stood 2 steps down, arms crossed around her purse, eyes on the porch boards. I stayed 3 feet back from the screen, like I'd practiced in my head. The new keys were cool and solid in my hand. I let them jingle once. The sound cut his next sentence in half. Proof's there, I said, nodding at the envelope I'd taped at eye level. Email only. He ignored the envelope. You can't just... He gestured at the lock. I can call someone. Call whoever you want, I said. My voice didn't go up. The paper's there. Destiny laughed, nervous edges under it. Girl, you're not even on the deed. I held up the ring of keys without shaking them this time. Proof's in the envelope. Email only, I repeated, like a cashier repeating a total until someone hears it. Whitney reached for the tape and peeled a corner of the envelope, then stopped. Aiden, she said, soft warning. She didn't look at me. He ripped the envelope free and flipped through the copies, faster than reading. This doesn't mean anything yet, he announced, like a courtroom he'd invented. We talked to a guy. Esme at the county is my guy, I said. I'm recording the affidavit Monday. Today is day 121. I kept my hands in sight, the keys resting against my palm. He slapped the papers against his thigh. You think you're going to put me out? I think you've been given notice, I said. Boxes are on the porch. Pick up by Friday. Email only. Destiny stopped laughing at the word notice, just for a second, then lifted her phone higher. Are you filming me? She asked like she'd just remembered to be offended. Yes, I said. My phone had been recording since the tires hit gravel. Time, date, everyone's fine. He leaned in, forehead close to the mesh. You're not getting a cent from me. Okay, I said. He blinked. Okay, what? Okay, I repeated. I didn't fill the silence. The small claims forms in my bag were filled out to the line before signature. I could see the blank space in my head where his address went. Whitney took the copies back from him and stacked them neatly, thumb smoothing the corners. Kimberly, she said, using my name like a suggestion, we could discuss this if you'd just open the door. Email, I said. That's how I'm discussing things. I angled my chin toward the porch. Boxes are labeled, nothing's broken. You're out of your mind, Destiny said, but quieter now. Her camera caught the label I'd written. Aiden, clothes. The tape seams lined up. I lived here, Aiden snapped, a little boy note in an adult throat. I grew up. You didn't grow up here, I said before I could swallow it. I did. I kept my voice flat. And I paid the bills. Your share is in the summary. $480 by the 15th. He laughed with his mouth, not his eyes. For what? Storage fees? For utilities and final expenses, I said. The line items are on the second page. Otto's screen door clicked across the street. He stood in his yard with his mug and didn't do anything else. Just stood like a witness stands. There, not in it. Aiden pulled at the screen, the latch held with a small metallic insistence. Keys, he demanded, like he could say it into happening. These are mine, I said. If you need access to pick up your things, email for a time. Destiny shifted her weight and the porch board creaked. You're going to be sorry, she said, but she was looking at the envelope now, flipping to the page with the notary stamp. Maybe, I said. Not today. Whitney tried a different tack, voice syrupy. Honey, this is so aggressive. It's paper, I said. It's a process. Monday I go to the county. Today I'm not opening the door. Aiden went red, the kind of red that starts at the neck and climbs. I'm not paying you a cent, he said again, louder, like louder made it true. Okay, I said again, because I had the filing fee in an envelope and the forms in my bag. The words sat between us like a brick. For a second, there was just the sound of the hummingbirds clicking at each other over the empty feeder and the faraway noise of someone mowing 2 streets over. Destiny lowered her phone a fraction and looked at Whitney, who didn't return the look. Pick up by Friday, I said. Email only, that's all I have. Aiden slapped the envelope back onto the tape, crooked now. This isn't over, he said, but it landed more like something he wanted to hear than something true. Email, I said. Same calm, same distance. He glared for one more beat. Then he turned on his heel and walked back down the steps, past the boxes with his name on them. Destiny followed, camera up again, but less sure of what to say. Whitney paused, pressed her lips together like she was holding in 100 things she'd never say, and then went after them. I stood there until the car door shut and the engine rolled away. Then I shut off my camera and checked that the latch was still latched, the keys still heavy in my hand. The house smelled like dust and lemon cleaner, exactly like it had at 8 that morning. I picked up the envelope that was hanging crooked and smoothed the tape, then jotted the time on the bottom corner of my summary because details make things real. I didn't open the door. I didn't need to. The lock clicked once when I turned the knob, just to remind me it was there, and then I set the keys on the counter for a second and let the quiet pool in the room. The quiet didn't ask anything of me. It just existed, the way a closed door does, steady and mine. Monday morning, I was at the county clerk's office when the doors unlocked. Esme recognized me and gave me a small smile. I slid the packet across: certified death certificate, the transfer on death deed copy, the notarized affidavit I'd filled out on Friday, and the preliminary change of ownership form the website said to include. She checked the boxes on her screen, stamped in red, and told me the fee. I paid and watched the stamp hit the top right corner of my affidavit with a neat thunk that felt like a seatbelt clicking. "Recording date is today," she said. "Here's your conformed copy." She slipped the receipt under the clip on the folder. "You're all set on our end." "Thank you," I said, because there wasn't a better word. Back at the house, I set the conformed copy in the deed tab, then stood at the kitchen counter with my phone and a legal pad. I called the gas company first. "I need to switch service into my name," I said. "Account number, meter photo, then electric, then water." Each call ended with a confirmation number I wrote in the margin and circled. The cable company put me on hold long enough for me to wipe the fridge shelves. When a human picked up, I canceled Dad's old account and opened my own. I changed the Wi-Fi network name to something only I would remember and set a new password that had my binder tab names in it like a joke for no one. The house was louder empty than I remembered, so I turned the old box fan on low for company. I took the security sign out of the grass and leaned it in the garage. I put Dad's baseball magazine on the coffee table where he would have flicked through it. I watered the tomatoes hard and cut the split ones for the compost. The bent fence board had bothered me for months. I set a fresh picket and 2 screws with the drill from the drawer and tapped it straight. When I stepped back, the line looked right. The 15th came without a payment. I checked my email twice that day and then put my phone face down. On the 16th, I drove to the courthouse with my binder and filled out the small claims form at a counter that was too low for comfort. Claim, reimbursement for final utilities and household expenses per attached receipts. Amount, $480. I stapled copies of the summary and the bills. The filing fee stung, money I could have put toward a better coffee maker, but I paid it and slid the receipt into the FE's sleeve. I hired a process server because I didn't want to involve Otto more than he'd already stepped up. 3 days later, the server texted me a photo. The notice tucked behind the knocker of the front door, date and time stamped, Aiden's name clear on the caption. The hearing date sat a month out. I marked it on the calendar and went back to work, back to the store, back to my routine. In the gaps, I made the house mine in small ways that cost less than $20. I scrubbed the grout around the sink with a toothbrush. I swapped the brittle porch bulb for a warm one. Otto came over with his drill and an extra set of hands when I said I had a wobbly couch to wrangle. 2 nights after that, Amara and I carried in a secondhand couch from a thrift store that still smelled like someone else's fabric softener. We laughed at nothing until my stomach hurt, and then sat quiet because quiet didn't scare me anymore. Whitney emailed once. "Has any mail arrived for my boy?" I typed back, "Not at this address," and left it there. Destiny's posts slowed to food and gym mirrors. Aiden didn't email at all. The boxes I'd labeled disappeared from the porch the second evening after I set them out. I swept the steps and taped a fresh note over the sticky outline where the first envelope had hung. Contact by email only. The night before the hearing, my phone buzzed at 4:52 p.m. with a mobile deposit alert, cashier's check, $480. The memo line was blank. I set the phone down, took a photo of the deposit screen for the binder, and texted Amara. He paid. She sent back 13 confetti emojis and then, "Are you okay?" I looked around the kitchen at the counters I'd wiped a dozen times and at the porch light I'd hung straight. "Yeah, I said out loud to the empty room. I'm okay. In the morning, I went to court anyway. I checked in, waited in a plastic chair, then told the clerk I'd been paid in full and asked how to dismiss. One signature, a stamp, and that was that. No speeches, no win to wave, just a line in my bank app and a line through the hearing on my calendar. The first full bill cycle with the utilities in my name, I stood at the sink and ate tomato slices over the counter with salt, juice running down my wrist, and it felt ordinary in the best way. I paid the gas, the electric, the water. I filed the confirmations behind their tabs. Otto waved from his yard when I set the trash out on the right day without thinking. He nodded at the straight fence board like it had always been that way. I kept Dad's blanket folded over the recliner. I left the hummingbird feeder up and cleaned it. The birds came back. Some afternoons I sat on the stoop with coffee and watched the light move across the driveway, not waiting for tires or voices. Most days, the screen door stays latched unless I decide otherwise. When the keys jingle now, the sound is simple. They're just keys, solid in my palm, the shape of something I earned and kept.